Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we're unpacking something that most people honestly never even think about. Well, not until they're suddenly standing ankle deep in water right in their own living room. We're looking at the hidden science and really the sheer logistical precision of water damage restoration. And to make this incredibly tangible for us, we're using a hyper-local case study, the community of Penn Hills, Pennsylvania. We're going to see exactly how professionals battle nature, physics, and time to literally save a home from the ground up. Okay, let's dive right into this with a number that basically dictates everything in the restoration industry. 60. Specifically, 60 minutes. This is the critical emergency response time guaranteed by local experts to reach a property. You might be wondering, why is that specific window so incredibly vital? Well, because water doesn't just sit there. It moves fast, and the destruction is exponential. If a pipe bursts or a sump pump fails at 2 a.m., waiting until morning? Yeah, that's just not an option. A fast response stops secondary damage in its tracks and significantly reduces total restoration costs. Make no mistake, the clock is the ultimate enemy here.
So here is our blueprint for restoration. We'll be systematically walking through the Penn Hills risk profile, the ticking mold clock, the 3 categories of water, the science of drying, and finally, rebuilding and recovery.
Let's start with Section 1, the Penn Hills risk profile, environmental and structural hazards.
Penn Hills is actually a really fascinating case study because it presents this whole gauntlet of different water risks year-round. The local terrain is shaped by the Plum Creek and Thompson Run watersheds. Add to that the fact that the entire area sits on clay-heavy soil, which just acts like a giant sponge during spring snowmelts. We also have some very specific local architectural quirks. For instance, hillside walkout basements in neighborhoods like Rosedale Terrace, they are highly vulnerable to surface water runoff. Meanwhile, in areas like Duff and Universal, you have this aging housing stock from the 1960s and 70s where original cast iron drain lines are, frankly, right at their breaking point. And we definitely can't forget those severe winter freeze-thaw cycles. When temperatures suddenly drop below 20 degrees, pipes and unheated crawlspaces just rupture without any warning.
Now, what's really interesting here is how the concept of hydrostatic pressure perfectly explains why basements in areas like Crescent Hills experience such severe seepage during wet seasons. Now, I know hydrostatic pressure sounds like intense engineering jargon, but it's really just the basic physics of saturated clay soil pushing water against your foundation. It pushes and pushes until it finds a crack, a floral joint, or an overwhelmed drain. It's just a relentless, invisible force constantly pressing against a home's defenses.
Moving on to Section 2, the ticking mold clock, the critical 72-hour window.
Remember when I said the clock is the enemy? Every single hour of standing water increases the total damage. In hour 1, water is rapidly spreading. It's wicking right up the drywall and saturating carpet padding. By hour 48, a critical window shuts completely. Hardwood flooring can actually still be saved if drying begins by now, but laminate flooring, no way. It swells irreversibly and is a total loss. And by hour 72, the situation escalates from mere water damage into something much worse, microbial colonization. Mold begins to actively grow, and structural decay really kicks into high gear.
And here are the exact environmental triggers for that mold. It needs a relative humidity of over 60% and temperatures above 40 degrees. Think about Pennsylvania's humid summers for a second. It literally creates the absolute perfect storm for rapid microbial growth inside a wet house. If restoration equipment is removed before a structure is completely 100% dry, you aren't just risking mold, you're virtually guaranteeing it. Which brings us to Section 3, the 3 categories of water, assessing the contamination threat. Not all water is created equal. The industry standard dictates 3 specific threat levels. Category 1 is your clean water. Think a frozen pipe bursting cleanly in the wall. Initially, it poses no substantial health risk. Then we step up to Category 2, which is gray water. This carries some contamination, something like a washing machine overflow. But Category 3, that is black water. And this brilliantly illustrates why professionals have entirely different safety protocols, disposal methods, and cleaning procedures based on the source.
Category 3 is a severe, absolute biohazard. We're talking sewage backups, chronic municipal line stoppages, or raw river flooding. This is definitely not a mop and bucket situation, guys. Professionals handling Category 3 water have to wear full personal protective equipment. They use EPA-registered hospital-grade disinfectants, but most importantly, any porous material, whether that's carpet, drywall, or padding, that touches Category 3 water absolutely cannot be saved.
It has to be completely ripped out, securely disposed of, and the underlying structure meticulously treated with antimicrobials before rebuilding can even be discussed.
Okay, let's get into Section 4, the science of drying, psychrometrics and mitigation.
Have you ever heard the term psychrometrics? It's the scientific study of the thermodynamic properties of moist air. Listen, professional restorers don't just drag a few box fans into a soggy basement and hope for the best. In Pennsylvania, while state licensing isn't technically required, the elite restorers all follow the IICRC S500 standard. That involves 70 hours of certified classroom training. These technicians are out there actively calculating vapor pressure, specific humidity, and grain depression, just to figure out exactly how many commercial dehumidifiers and negative air machines to deploy and precisely where to place them for maximum evaporation.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this number, 15%. This is the equilibrium moisture content that wood framing must be brought below. If a restorer leaves a wall stud sitting at, say, 18% moisture and then just seals it up behind new drywall, decay and microbial growth are going to inevitably follow. It has to be below 15%, no exceptions.
To actually get down to that 15%, they deploy some incredibly abrasive, highly advanced mitigation techniques. They start with these massive truck-mounted vacuum units that can rip hundreds of gallons of water per hour right out of subfloors. They use thermal imaging cameras, not to see in the dark, but to detect tiny temperature differences that reveal hidden moisture trapped deep inside wall cavities. They might drill weep holes right into baseboards to force evaporation, or hang up plastic barriers to create targeted hyperdry microclimates. And throughout this entire 3 to 7 day drying process, they are taking daily moisture readings. Why? Because thorough daily documentation is the undeniable proof of proper mitigation that insurance companies absolutely require to pay out.
Which takes us to our final part, Section 5, Rebuilding and Recovery, Navigating the Aftermath. Understanding the distinction between these two things could seriously save you thousands of dollars. When you're dealing with Pennsylvania insurance claims, you generally encounter two policy types. Replacement cost value, or RCV, covers the full expense of putting in brand new materials of a similar kind without even worrying about depreciation. Actual cash value, or ACV, however, pays for the replacement cost minus a deduction for how old and worn the damaged materials were. Knowing which policy you actually hold is absolutely vital for calculating what your potential out-of-pocket costs are going to be during reconstruction. Ultimately, the final bill ties together everything we've explored in this explainer today. The cost is heavily driven by the water category, with Category 3 biohazards obviously being the most expensive to safely clean up. It's driven by saturation depth, because deeply soaked structural materials require days and days of very expensive commercial dehumidification. And of course, it's driven by material type. Replacing permanently swollen laminate is an entirely different ballgame from the slow, incredibly stubborn process of trying to draw moisture out of a concrete slab. Water damage is totally relentless, but as we've seen looking at Penn Hills today, it can be systematically defeated with rapid action, applied physics, and uncompromising standards. So I'm going to leave you with this. When that 60-minute clock inevitably starts ticking in your own home, will you know the hidden science required to save it? Thanks for learning with us today. Keep your eyes open, keep your spaces dry, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.